Good day, everyone. On behalf of the Group 3 members, we are here to present our assigned task. But before we will proceed to our discussion, allow me to introduce our ever-gorgeous and sexy mamshi, Ms. Jemarie Tinambakan.
Sugo sa maayong pamatasan, kami nga grupo mangayo og katahuran, maayong adlaw kanatong tanan. Kami ang grupo nga magahisgot kabahin sa produksyon sa pagkaon ug palibot. In English, food production and environment. O diba? Perfect? Sa dili pa namo sugdan, Sir Alfred, hinaot nga imo kining madunggan ug masinatian. Sa kalit nga panahon, niabot ka aron ipaambit sa mua ang environmental science nga subject nga wala sad namo damha. Kakurat ang among nabati, apan kalipay sad ang among gipamati. And because of this subject, we know a lot of topic. Sir Alfred, sa imong pag-abot, kami mapasalamaton. Gumikan kay imo kaming ihampak og sugilanon. Sugilanon kabahin sa palibot ug produksyon sa pagkaon. Niining subject ka nga kabahin sa siyensa sa kinaiyahan, kami daghan gayong nahibalan. Dili na nako tason, hantod sa sunod nga higayon. Kita tapuhon. Thank you.
As we go along with our discussion, you will be able to know what is food security and why is it difficult to attain. And lastly, to be able to know how is food produced.
We are Group 3 and our report is about food production and the environment. So although Leopold says there are two spiritual dangers in not owning a farm. One is the danger of supposing that breakfast comes from the grocery and the other that heat comes from the furnace. As what Aldo Leopold drove of spiritual danger, as I see it, spiritual danger is a complacency which numbs our spirit from the true connection and the interdependence of every living creature. Complacency may appear easy, avoiding Aldo Leopold's spiritual danger, and this requires physical and mental effects. So we'll proceed to food production. Did you know that food production is responsible for 1/4 of the world's greenhouse gas emissions? Industrial agriculture harms the environment through the pollution of air, soil, and water. Air emissions from livestock operation make up 14.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Then our crop production. Crop productions degrade soil health and causes soil erosions. Then how about our water pollution? The high content of nitrogen and other nutrients in manure runs off leads to dead zone in downstream waterways. Unfortunately, it is very impossible to separate our food production, our food processing, and our food distribution from our environment. So classmates, Sir Alfred, that's only an introduction to our topic. Our first topic will be discussed by Ms. Isabelita Sastre.
What is food security and why is it difficult to attain? Now, allow me to discuss what is food security and food insecurity. Food security is the condition under which all or most of the people in a population have daily access to enough nutritious food to live active and healthy lives. More than 1 billion people work in agriculture to grow crops on about 38% of the Earth's ice-free land. They produce more than enough food to meet the basic nutritional needs of every person on the Earth. Despite of this food surplus, 1 of every 6 people in the world is not getting enough to eat. These people face food insecurity, living in a chronic hunger and poor nutrition, which threatens their ability to lead healthy and productive lives. In addition, food insecurity exists whenever the availability of nutritionally adequate and safe foods or the ability to acquire acceptable foods in socially acceptable ways is limited or uncertain. Other obstacles to food security are war, corruption, political upheaval, bad weather such as prolonged drought, flooding, and heat waves, and climate change also. Then another reason for food insecurity is that about 33% of the calories in the world's grain production are used to produce meat that many poor people cannot afford. 5% are used to produce biofuels for cars, and another 33% are wasted. Poverty is the root cause of food insecurity. Most agricultural experts agree that the root cause of food insecurity is poverty, which prevents poor people from growing or buying enough food to meet their needs. The root cause of food insecurity is poverty, which causes hunger. Poverty and food insecurity are deeply related as poverty may adversely affect the social determinants of health and may create unfavorable conditions in which people might experience unreliable food supply. Poverty causes hunger as millions of people live with hunger and malnourishment because they simply cannot afford to buy enough food, cannot afford nutritious foods, and cannot afford the farming supplies they need to grow enough the good food of their own. Many people suffer from chronic hunger and malnutrition. People who cannot grow or buy enough food to meet their basic energy needs suffer from chronic undernutrition or hunger. Most of the world's hungry people live in low-income, less developed countries and typically can afford only low-protein, high carbohydrate, vegetarian diet consisting mainly of grains, such as wheat, rice, and corn. This concept mostly happened in our country, which is the Philippines, where in much of us usually prefer to eat more rice or corn than a protein. In more developed countries, people living in food deserts have a similar problem except that their diet is heavy on cheap food loaded with fat, sugar, and salt. In both cases, people often suffer from chronic malnutrition, a condition in which they do not get enough protein and other key nutrients because they prefer to eat more on sugar, fats, and salt. This can weaken them, make them more vulnerable to disease, and hinder the normal physical and mental development of children. So to maintain good health and resist disease, individuals need fairly large amounts of macronutrients such as carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and smaller amounts of micronutrients such as vitamins A, B, and C, and minerals such as iron, iodine, and calcium.
Many people do not get enough vitamins and minerals. About 2 billion people, most of them in less developed countries, suffer from a deficiency of one or more vitamins and minerals, usually vitamin A, iron, and iodine. According to the World Health Organization, or the WHO, at least 250,000 children younger than age 6, most of them in less developed countries, go blind every year from a lack of vitamin A. Within a year, more than half of them die. We live in a world where, according to WHO, about 1 billion people face health problems because they do not get enough nutritious food to eat, and other 1.6 billion have health problems because they do not eat too much. The WHO estimates that obesity contributes to the deaths of 2.8 million people per year. Overeating is easy to do, especially when you're indulging in an unusual, delicious meal. Fortunately, there are many tactics you can use to stop overeating once and for all, from slowing down to learning your body's hunger cues. Use these tips to get your eating on track so you can feel fueled and satiated instead to full and frustrated. Next, many people have health problems from eating too much. Overnutrition occurs when weight share similar health problems. Stop the cycle of overeating once and for all with these simple tips. First, make at least half of your plate or use smaller plates. Second, eat protein with every meal or snack. Third, drink water before eating meal. Fourth, begin with a vegetable soup or salad. Fifth, eat mindfully. And the last one, get your stress under control. Test each one to see which works best for you and then stick with it. Once it becomes a habit, you are more likely to be healthy individual.
So the next is
How is food produced? We have used high-input industrialized agriculture and lower-input traditional agriculture to greatly increase food supplies. Historically, humans have depended on three systems for their food supply: the croplands, rangelands, and oceanic fisheries. In terms of agriculture, the earth has 30,000 plants species with parts that can be eaten. Only 15 plants and 8 terrestrial animals supply 90% of our food. 3 grain crops including wheat, rice, and corn provide more than half the calories that people consume. 2/3 of the world people survive primarily on traditional grains because they cannot afford meat. As income rise, people consume more grain, but in the form of products of grain like eating domesticated livestock. Fish and shellfish supply less than 1% of the energy and less than 6% of the protein in the human diet. In industrialized crop production relies on high-input monocultures. When it comes to agriculture, there is gonna be 2 major types of agriculture. We have our industrialized agriculture and subsistence agriculture. In industrialized agriculture or high-input agriculture, uses heavy equipment along with the large amounts of financial capital, fossil fuels, water, commercial or organic fertilizers, and pesticides to produce single crops or monocultures. While subsistence agriculture uses only human and animal labor and only produces enough food for their farmer's family. Now, about 80% of the world's food supply is actually produced by industrialized agriculture. Moreover, the importance of industrialized agriculture has helped create new ways to transport, store, and process food, allowing these products to last longer without going bad. This has helped increase the amount of food available while reducing waste. So the next is plantation agriculture. It is a form of commercial farming where crops are grown for sale. Some crops are sold as raw materials to manufacturing industries or partially processed and value added before selling the products to large companies for further processing. It involves growing cash crops such as bananas, coffee, vegetables, soybeans are mostly to feed livestock, sugarcane or to produce sugar and ethanol fuel, and palm oil or to produce cooking oil and biodiesel fuel. These crops are grown on large monoculture plantations, mostly for export to more developed countries.
Traditional agriculture often relies on low-input polyculture. When we say polyculture, it is an agriculture using multiple crops like plants and animals in the same place. Polyculture method relies on solar energy and natural fertilizers such as animal manure. Polyculture is an application of the biodiversity principle of sustainability because crop diversity helps protect and replenish the soil and reduces the chance of losing most or all of the year's food supply to pests, bad
weather, and other misfortunes. Research shows that on average, low-input polyculture produces higher yields than does high-input industrialized monoculture, while using less energy and fewer resources and providing more food security for small landowners. Say, for example, ecologists Peter Rich and David Tillman found that carefully controlled polyculture plots with 16 different species of plants consistently outproduced plots with 9, 4, or only one type of plant species. Polycultures of 2 or more crops grown together can have many benefits. Scientific studies have shown that growing in polycultures can mean crops are less susceptible to pests and diseases, and it can also give greater productivity and economic profitability.
Organic agriculture is on the rise. What is organic agriculture? Organic agriculture is a production system that sustains the health of soils, ecosystems, and people. A fast-growing sector of the US and world economies is organic agriculture, in which crops are grown without the use of synthetic pesticides, synthetic organic fertilizers, and genetically engineered varieties. And animals must be raised on 100% organic feed without the use of antibiotics or growth hormones. Example, estradiol 17, progesterone, and testosterone. Now let me show you how organic agriculture compared to industrialized agriculture. Industrialized agriculture uses synthetic inorganic fertilizers and sewage sludge to supply plants nutrients. What is sewage sludge? Sewage sludge is the residue resulting from the treatment of waste water released from various sources, including homes, industries, medical facilities, street runoff, and businesses. Next, industrialized agriculture makes use of synthetic chemical pesticides. It uses conventional and genetically modified seeds. What is genetically modified seeds, or GM seeds? GM seeds are a significant step forward in the production of agricultural crops. Seeds that have been modified to contain specific characteristics such as resistance to herbicides or pests. Industrialized agriculture depends on non-renewable fossil fuels, mostly oil and natural gas. It also produces significant air and water pollution and greenhouse gases. Industrialized agriculture is globally oriented and it uses antibiotics and growth hormones to produce meat and meat products. However, inorganic agriculture emphasizes prevention of soil erosion and the use of organic fertilizers such as animal manure and compost, but no sewage sludge to supply plant nutrients. Employs crop rotation and biological pest control. Uses no genetically modified seeds. Reduces fossil fuel use and increase use of renewable energy such as solar and wind power for generating electricity. Produces less air and water pollution and greenhouse gases.